everybody, welcome back to another episode of Small Business Summer. So this is one of the many podcasts that we're featuring in this little mini summer series where we showcase a lot of small businesses, whether they're local or nationally known, just to help, bring awareness to their business, if they are working for a certain cause or they have an amazing mission statement and philosophy within the business itself. We want to showcase them. So with that being said, this individual that we're showcasing today on Small Business Summer, you might have recognized because he was actually involved in our previous series that we did, creative content for a cause. But now we're going to go more into detail or learn more about, his martial arts style, the business that he runs, the school for it, the team, just pretty much everything about this amazing individual that I had the pleasure to work with during the entire month of May. So without further ado, everyone, this is June. Hi, June. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Right now, I'm traveling, which for some of our viewers may have already know, but I'm good regardless. Traveling, and I'm here, and I want to just learn more about you. I know that we've talked and we worked together for a few weeks, but I'm ready to dive deeper. I'm ready to learn more about June. I'm ready to learn about your martial arts school and everything you've done. I'm ready. So why don't you go ahead and introduce all the listeners and tell them a little about yourself?
I'm located here in South Seattle, teaching Shaolin Kung Fu, Shaolin Chen, as we call it. I'm down here in South Seattle because this is where I grew up, and my whole goal was to not revitalize my community. That's not exactly what's on my mind, but to give back to my community, where I grew up, where I'm from. We have a lot of martial arts programs here, whether it's after school, kids, adults, but really they're more of we think of them as more like leadership programs. Even when it gets to the adult groups, because I think those are skills that everyone can benefit from. And yeah, I personally have been training for quite a while. I was raised here, so I trained here. I went to China and trained. I'm a student of a master in China called Hu Zhengsheng. He's a pretty prolific person in that realm of Shaolin Kung Fu. And I'm the USA coach.
Awesome. So before we talk about the school you started, I want to go a little bit into detail about you growing up in your martial arts and your studies within the martial arts, because I'm very curious about it. I'm a fan of martial arts. I love also learning the discipline, learning the different styles and stuff. So why don't you go ahead and tell the viewers how you got started in martial arts, kind of throughout the years, the transformation, and what specifically made you stick with this specific style of martial arts?
I actually have a family of martial artists. And I started training with my brother. He was teaching what we call Chang Quan, meaning long fist, and Wushu. It's like a more modern, I'm lost for words today, a modern style of Kung Fu, Chinese martial arts. And as I got older, I joined another team in Seattle. We were doing focus on Sanda, which is like a kickboxing and wrestling. But growing up in South Seattle, I maybe wasn't the most positively. I was getting in a lot of trouble, is what I'm trying to say in a very. And martial arts was just a good source for core values for me. I think it was difficult though because we weren't very. It wasn't like we were taught core values in martial arts, but core martial arts intrinsically has core values in it to participate in it, right? Things like being honest with yourself, self-evaluation, respect, boundaries, standards for how you should be treated, honor. Just there's so many things that are part of martial arts that maybe you don't get taught, but you gain through martial arts. And I think after so long competing, especially in fighting, I slowly, even to this day, slowly I'm picking up those skills, and it definitely took me out of where I was and got me to where I am. You know what I mean? Because we weren't really getting that from anywhere else. I mean, those core values weren't really present in our daily life in any other way. So that's actually why I'm here, to offer that same kind of experience for other people who are, who I would consider part of my community.
Yeah, I think when it comes to core values, especially at a young age, I think the best way to go about it is kind of like introduce individuals that are younger to it, but not like really like teach them hard about it. Because if you teach them too hard, they don't want to like retain what they learned, and it's not going to stick with them. But like for martial arts, and for example, your experience, it wasn't necessarily said, but it was already, instilled in martial arts, and it was already part of what you were learning and what you were doing. So you didn't know it, but you were learning those core values, which helped shaped you, but it wasn't like forced upon you. Like, like if say a kid went to school and they taught about it in school and they're just repeatedly doing it to keep on speaking and forcing it onto them, a good percentage of them won't listen or won't retain it. And for martial arts, it's like also a fun way, I think, to teach young kids and young individuals and even adults too, those core values that pretty much help make better people, like better all around people, and it sticks with them.
With adults, it's harder because if adults don't already solidify those morals, it's hard for you to influence those kinds of, internal foundation they have. But with adults, what I try to do is just lead by example. But I have to admit, it's not a very effective way of teaching,
Yeah.
because you can pick up on these things, but like 95% of the time they do not, which is fine. But with kids, what I do is I'm a little bit more verbal with the kids, telling them like, hey, this is what you should be doing. We call it 武德 in Chinese martial arts. It means kind of like a really common translation is code of the warrior, but really it's like things a warrior knows. So it's not like really something it's not a dogma, but it's something you gain. With the kids, what I do is I try to align, really basic core values with what they're already doing.
Hmm.
And some showing them when what they're doing is not aligning with those core values. For example, right, a big one we teach them is like standards and boundaries as part of respect, having standards for yourself, having boundaries with others, and then, showing them how like they observe those boundaries, like they call their parents mom and dad. That's like a boundary between their relationship, right? They don't call each other by first name, so that's like a boundary. But then when they cross those boundaries, we also reel them in and say like, hey, that's not aligning with your core values as a martial artist. You know what I mean?
Hmm. That's a Yeah, I understand that completely. So for you, when you started learning martial arts, what specific style were you learning? And did you continue with that style until you went over to China to learn?
Well, when I first started, we were learning something called Changquan and Wushu. Wushu is kind of like the colloquial way to say it in America.
Hmm.
In China, Wu means just like martial arts, but here it means modern Chinese martial arts. Because people call it Wushu. So like it's lost in translation. But and then actually I did that for quite a while, and then when I started fighting competitively, kind of put that on the back burner. But when I went to go train in China, I was originally put on the performance team, and the performance team does a lot of wushu. Also a lot of what we call nandu, means like hard moves, like flips and aerial cartwheels and cool kicks and stuff as part of like a performing kind of thing. Also requires a lot of body control and power and coordination. But even to this day, in my school I teach like wushu, uh, also traditional Shaolin Kung Fu and fighting, so they can get kind of like a whole picture. We also teach qigong, which is like it's kind of like yoga. I would compare it. Like maybe it's parallel somewhat.
How long were you learning in China for?
I go back. Okay, now I go back every few years. I used to go back every other year for a few weeks. Then I used to go every year for a few months. And I went once for a long stay for almost a year.
Oh, wow. How was
Now,
that?
for that too, I think for no, I went first time I went was a few weeks, then a few months, and then I had my long stay. Um, my first time in China was for a competition and for some training, which was really fun. So I was quite a young man, but the long stay was good. It was fun. I was on the performance team, and it was just a big eye open. You know what I mean? Like I did not really want to teach martial arts when I was there, but when I came back, we had little clubs here and there, but I think at the time, kind of, because a lot of people who I was there with were kind of lost in their life. They weren't doing anything, and their life just brought them there. And then, everyone kind of found their way. And when you're there, it's like very military. You know what I mean? We train 12 hours a day. We wake up at 5:30. We go to sleep at 8. We have 3 meals. We have a 2-hour break, but we're like nonstop all day. And it really takes a certain kind of perseverance to be on the performance team. And so I thought like this is a good vehicle to gain, a true understanding of yourself, to gain these core values, and to, build yourself up as a person. And I don't think we have that a lot in America. So when I first opened my school, it was very much like training in China, which was not popular.
No, I wouldn't imagine.
So it's not like training in China anymore, but still keep the values.
Yeah. So after your long stay, before we talk about when you opened your school, who out of everyone you trained under when you were over there was the most influential to you to like make the decision to like continue in martial arts when you got back to start school to help others? Like, who influenced you the most?
Mm, hard question. I think at the time I was kind of in my own head. I want to say I influenced myself, but it sounds like I mean that's not like in that way. But the whole time I was kind of like in my own head and just like trying to figure things out. Because I was quite young too, so I was just constantly like every day I was evolving into something new. But I do have to admit, like it was maybe a team effort because so we have our teacher who is the one who is in charge of everyone, but then the teacher has maybe like 3 groups, and each group is 36 people, and each group has a group leader. And my group leader and my teacher were both really nice and kind people, which was not the norm in that time period. So I think, when I think back about them, the thing I took most away from them was just like that kindness that they had. You know what I mean? That there's like a genuine care they have for people. And I think that was the most influential part of that. Because like before of that trip, that was the biggest takeaway I had, besides whatever was going on in my head. But before I left, I was training here in Seattle, and not to talk bad, first of all, just a lot of martial arts teams have kind of like a like us versus them mentality. Like we're the best, kind of like we look up to our teacher very much. Our teacher's like a superhero kind of thing, and I bought into that. And as I get older, I'm kind of like, yeah, that's kind of BS. That's so even those who had influenced me in the past, it was kind of like through this kind of facade. You know what I mean? So, but in its own way, that carried over. Because now with my students, I try to always see them eye to eye. I never try to be above them, even for small things. Like when we train, I'll train with them. I won't try to train better than them. If we spar, I never try to beat them. I almost always bring myself down to their level where they could beat me, no matter how good or bad they are. Because I don't think that looking up to someone is the right way to learn from them.
No.
Yeah, that makes
No,
sense.
I know. No, that makes sense. I know for me personally, when I was like active duty in the military, I think one thing that, a lot of people normally congregate around the leader, and it's not just you know, modern times. It goes back like historical times, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. A lot of the men and women, they follow the leaders that like lead by example and don't think that they're better than everyone else. That they're actually there with them training and eating and stuff. And it's cool that you're implementing it within your school, because in a way also too, it can teach the kids, um, to not only, like, oh, like our teacher, um, sees us at our level, like he understands, he's training with us, he understands like what we're going through, like any hardships we might have with training or hiccups, but also too, like they'll be like, now I want to work with people in the future that do the same exact thing. It kind of sets them up for success, because I feel like working with people that like lead with that mentality or work with that mentality is more effective. So now there'll be like, okay, like I want to work with these amazing group of people that we're all in, like, we know that we're part of a team, we're all on like the same playing field and stuff, rather than, okay, someone thinks, because they did this for a certain amount of time, that they're better than me and I have to listen to them. So I think that's really cool that you're doing that within your school and setting them up for success for like years and years down the road when it comes to pretty much anything, right? Because any aspect in life, we have potential to lead and be like lead by example.
I it's like I really push this, but I have to admit it's hard because anytime I hand someone the reins, they immediately go into like, you I'm always like, where'd you learn this? Where'd you learn like leading style? You know what I mean? Like, so I think I'm always kind of struggling, right? 'Cause, if you are eye to eye with someone, they don't see you as maybe inspirational in some ways, but not influential in others. They won't try to mimic you. Whereas someone who seems uh, more than human, they try to mimic. I think because a lot of us are trying to kind of reflect what we think is best about ourselves through other people without actually realizing that we're all human and we're all kind of like in this weird gray space between being absolute, you know, garbage and being amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so people always are looking for someone who's already achieved this amazing, status, when in reality we're all kind of struggling, to be the best.
Yeah,
So
we're all constantly like learning and improving and stuff. And like you said, we're all constantly struggling. So I can see where that can be difficult as well, because they'll be like, they only see you, I'm guessing the kids that you teach, they only see you certain like parts of the day. They don't see you like in all your aspects, where, in one thing that you do, you might actually be, you're leading by example, but you're not on like their level of playing field or whatever. You're actually could be this like high and mighty to them, but they don't see that because they'll see you in class and you're like level with them. So they're like, this is what teachers should be like all the time, or this is what he is all the time, because they're kids, they don't, they might not understand that yet, that like there's other parts about your life, your kids, your home life, your extracurricular stuff that you do. So I can see where, again, like you said, it might be difficult because they only see you for a few hours of the day, and they're basing you off of that time.
another thing is, a lot of times, like, I think being a good leader, part of it is personally for myself, I think is being transparent faults also. But a lot of people, when they see that someone is not perfect, I don't know, it changes their view. When people think that you're, I don't know, really amazing, they treat you one way, but then when they see you're human, they don't. Which, I it's something I struggle with all my students, because I don't want anyone to just follow someone because they think they are higher, they're more amazing, they are more than human, right? Because we're all kind of even, we're all equal. You know what I mean?
Right.
And where this ties into martial arts is when we're in the ring, when we're fighting, we're all equal. You know what I mean? If you step in that ring, if you're 100 years old, I mean, you're going down. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Sure, it doesn't matter if you're my student, right? Um, and this kind of mentality that we don't have to revere someone, but then also we respect everyone is something I wish more people adhere to. And I wish my students understood a little bit better, which I know some do. But the funny thing is, it's mostly only the students who fight because they know how to. That being said, I'm not completely absolutely honest because sometimes if I have competed and sometimes I compete with my friends or other coaches' students that I know, and it's kind of a faux pas to beat up your friend's student. So, but maybe if they were 100-year-old master, that would be different.
Just a little bit, right?
Yeah, but if it's I don't know. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of the deal behind what we're doing here. What I'm trying to do, trying to show everyone I'll be respectful to everyone equally, and treat life kind of like you're in the ring sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes.
Sometimes for certain obstacles, it's good to like think that mentality so you can overcome them. So since we're talking about what you're teaching your students and stuff, when did you decide, or what year did you start your school?
2009.
Okay, so over 10 years ago.
Yes.
How
I've been doing. Oh.
So explain, since this is small business summer, kind of explain what it was like starting not only the business but the school in general. Like what did it take to get the school off the ground?
Well, I mean, when I first started, I was working quite a lot to fund this school. And then where do I start? I mean, it was very difficult, I mean, money was an issue, and then was it like maybe a year later we went to a economic crisis or something like that, 1 or 2 years later. But we had to withstand that. So it was just really difficult, I mean, when I first was thinking about opening my business, a mentor asked me a question. He said, if you have to, would you sacrifice your living situation, your food situation, food security, all these different things? And I thought, yeah, I would. I definitely would. And in the end, I had to. There was maybe like a year-long period where I was basically living at my school, out of my car and stuff. And the thing is, I have a very strong, like, moral and ethical kind of inclination, especially, being the whole reason why I opened the school. So there were a lot of times where I would sacrifice making money for creating value in my community, which I still do to this day, which a lot of people don't understand, but it served me well and served my community well. And to this day, I mean, now we're doing much better. I don't work anymore. I just teach. And still I make those little sacrifices.
I think I mean, I feel like when you start a business, there's always going to be sacrifices at some point. And what determines if the business is going to be successful? If the person who's running it and wants it to be successful is making the sacrifices, no matter if it's at the beginning of the business or a few years into it, something comes up and you have to make a sacrifice. I think that's one thing that determines if it's going to sink or if it's going to float. So, and it's cool that you're honest with, yes, admitting like, yeah, I struggled to start because, new business, economic crisis, I had to live at my school. And, I think
19 at the time.
Say again?
I think I was 19 at the time too. So I was a young man.
That's okay, because I feel like a lot of people now are getting like younger and younger starting businesses also, which is pretty cool. Because I think economic freedom, like running your own business and stuff, is a really cool thing. Even having like a second source of income, I think is really cool to have. And the fact that you were 19, like I applaud you. I wish I was like starting something when I was 19. But I think it's cool that you're transparent, that like you admit that you're struggling. But when it comes to the community, and I think just as a whole, you said that you value like creating good values and helping others in your community over the business itself. And I think that's another reason why your business continued to thrive, because even to this day and back then, you were putting others first. And even though it might seem like it, I feel like in the long run, that's always going to come out on top. And that always is going to like work out and help make that person successful. Because like, say, for example, someone you trained from like 2009, 2010, they saw how much effort you were putting into helping them, and they got such a good experience. They could have stayed with you for years and years to train. And then also too, they could be like, tell their friends and family like, hey, like there's this guy that started this martial arts school, you should go check him out because he's a great teacher. So that's where I think you continuing to put your values into your community and stuff will be successful for like the foreseeable and the long future down the road.
Yeah, I really hope so. I think a lot of people don't realize the kind of sacrifices, people around them make, because like we all exist together. Um, and we can't exist alone. And I hope that people can see these kind of sacrifices that we make for each other. Um, and kind of apply that to their own sense of, moral and ethical identity. That's something I think about a lot because a lot of martial arts teachers think about oftentimes how do I make more money off my students. And now this is not talking bad, but for example, things like belts. Belts sometimes are considered like kind of like a cash grab, and whether or not that's true, um, I've been hoping that the students I produce have the like mental ability to deep dive into these kinds of questions and how um, is this worth doing? You know what I mean? Even if I don't get a payday out of it, and I bring up the belt thing because people argue, you know, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Should teachers really be doing this? And a lot of martial artists are like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to get more money out of it, so why not? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping my students are able to take a deeper look at these things, right? And not be afraid. You know what I mean? And if they have to make those sacrifices, they could just look at those around them who had sacrificed for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean,
for sure. Um, so you started, like you said, in 2009. Now, you also mentioned that you were, well, you told me this when we were first like talking and about a previous project. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're the coach of the national team, correct? Or
yes.
how about you explain? Because I don't know.
Oh,
I'm probably like faulting it.
so I've been competing with the USA team for a while now, and then me, I always like to try to make myself, you know, available for whatever people need. Um, uh, you know, Anyways, so a few years down the line after I've been on the team for so long, when the organizers for the USA team messages me and he's like, hey, you want to be a coach for the USA team, right? And I'm like, hell yeah, of course I want to coach for the USA team. That's you know what I mean? No, I mean, I gave it my all, you know what I mean? I made sure, so our team didn't have a lot of things organized in a certain way that was helpful. So athletes didn't exactly know when they would be going up. Um, they didn't have like, there's just a lot of logistics that I had to organize, which made our team really strong. And then we did a lot to like community building. So our team was always there. Everyone on our team was there to cheer for each other. And the USA team is divided into different sections, and not every portion of the USA team was as supportive as my team. So I had this great time, supporting and representing. And then I have all these athletes that are like old school, really famous, really popular athletes, like super high level. I'm looking around and I'm like, why wasn't he a coach? Why isn't he a coach? We're all on this team, but they have so much more gravity. And I realized I'm the coach because no one else wanted to do it. I think he had messaged like longtime athletes, and was like, hey, we need some help. And they were all like, no, sorry. And of course, when it got to me, I was like, of course I want to do it. But regardless, I had a great time. Like, it was a great honor to support these athletes. And every time we go to world championships, I hope to coach again.
Mm-hmm. Were you coaching the same time that you were opening up your business as well? Was it like the same time frame, or was it before that?
Well, I was coaching on the USA team. I think my first year was 2017 was the first time, I think. Was it 221? 219? Yeah, 2017 was the first time I coached for the USA team. So quite a while after people started to recognize. But it's amazing,
Gotcha.
it was very difficult because, when we get there, there's a lot of information that needs to get disseminated. And I'd say not everyone can do it very effectively, me included. So my superpower is I can just course and the labor. And that's what I did. I was just up all night, every night, while we're in China. It's like a 5-day event, sending out messages, emails, putting together a list, showing up. I made sure every single one of my athletes got walked to their event, warmed up. I warmed up every single athlete. And, these things sound kind of like obvious, right? But I would say not every athlete on the USA team got supported, again, because they're all divided by region. So USA Team 1, join the team, join USA Team 1. Okay, that's my team.
So you said 2017 is when you coached, which is many years after you started your business. So kind of describe to me what the first few years of you running your school looked like. I know you mentioned you started off kind of like how you trained in China, and that did not bode well with people that were coming to the school, or they didn't like it. So kind of give us a little glimpse of how it started and what adjustments you made to get it to successful and to the point where it is today.
Well, I would have to say, before I was really just teaching 1 or 2 classes, like a couple class and advanced class, and I would do little events. So I think the first thing that had to adjust, besides like logistics, like websites and stuff, was definitely, offering more programs, at different times for adults and kids, which is kind of an obvious thing, but, I didn't really have anyone showing me the way, right? But, our training before was really hard. Like, they were training just like they were in China, but then, sometimes people would get hurt and then they'd be out of commission, right? So, we slowly, gradually started shifting more towards training smart and training hard, and really just focusing on the most fundamental things they need to be successful. So like before, I would make sure every single athlete knew every little thing they needed to be a good martial artist. But now, we kind of just have them do the fundamentals, get really good at fundamentals, and the people with the right questions learn the best things. I don't know how to say that, but yeah, we kind of let students guide their own education now, versus like having an outline where they should learn. Because in reality, like, not everyone wants to learn everything. Not everyone wants to fight. Not everyone wants to do flips. So yeah, that was a big big shift. It took a lot of years to shift how the program and curriculum worked. And, a lot of it was building up the business, you know what I mean? And teaching students how to lead, teaching students how to be leaders so that we could diversify our programs. It's like martial arts school is not necessarily like restaurant. Restaurant, people come, people go. In martial arts school, people come and then they build their own equity. They gain the ability to teach classes and lead, and in that they have more opportunities to learn more things. You know what I mean? And so even for the USA team, a lot of my students were helping me this last time coach. They're helping me with logistics, just all little things I was able to delegate more. And I definitely think building a strong team is like one of the biggest things that brought me from where I was to where I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was I going to say? I think it's also cool that you are adjusting the curriculum to the student, because like you said, not everyone wants to do this, that, and the other thing, but also not everyone learns at the same pace
Yeah.
as everyone else, or not everyone gets it at the same time. So adjusting the curriculum to the student, I think, is very helpful, beneficial, because then they'll learn it how they can learn it, and then it will come to them when like all the pieces fit together for them, not because, oh, this person told me I have to follow this exact plan, and then I should now be at the end where I'm at. But they follow that exact plan. They see everyone else succeeding, and they may not be, and that discourages them. I
Yeah.
think that could be an example. So adjusting the curriculum to the students, I think, is really really helpful. Um, and you teach more children and kids over adults, correct? You have like more children classes than adults, or no?
Nope. It's even.
Oh, is
We have a
it?
lot.
Okay.
The
You're
one
just
thing
jam.
that about like having people learn at their own pace is some people aren't used to that. I would have to admit, like a lot of people works great. When someone's ready, they move on. Um, when they put together all the building blocks, they get the full picture. But then every once in a while, you have someone who doesn't get it but thinks they should move on, which I would say, like a big part of martial arts is, evaluating yourself very honestly. You know what I mean? Especially, as a leader, we all got to have a very honest evaluation of our abilities, and then delegate what we can't ourselves do, and even sometimes what we can do.
Mhm. Um, that's true too, because they might get so frustrated, be like, I don't want to do this part anymore. Let me do something else, and maybe it'll come to me. So there's all many different examples of how someone retains and learns the information. Um, so you made the school
Martial arts.
change on how you approached uh, classes and stuff. When did you realize that you were becoming more successful in your business?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I've ever stopped and thought that, but I've definitely a big shift was definitely when I quit my job and I just did this, and it was a really easy decision. Like I was already making enough to live on, that I was not worried about money. And then I was like, why am I still working? It was just a really easy decision to make, free up my time. And the thing that people don't know about owning a business is that it takes a lot of time. You don't go home and you're done with work. You take work home, you wake up, you work all day, every day. For myself, teaching arts, you would think I would just have to teach, but in reality, it's a lot of things. A lot of people aren't ready. I think they don't realize that, and I hope anyone who's thinking of opening a business knows, like, you're basically always working because you always got to push the envelope. You always got to push it and elevate your business. You can't just like, you know, surf. I don't feel that there's any time you could just coast. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
once,
Don't be or
like
not
maybe,
consent. Don't be content with where your business is at.
yeah, yeah. It's really easy to stop pushing that progress you have as a business owner. You know what I mean? It's really easy.
Hmm. Um, what I'm curious, what job were you doing before you quit?
I was a
Because
chef.
you've just been saying, "Oh, this job I quit." Oh, you were a chef? Really? I would not peg you as a chef.
Yeah, yeah.
Did
I
you
was a
enjoy it at least?
I did, and working in the kitchen is very much like doing martial arts, and in general, I think for me, martial arts matches a lot of my inclinations on how I think and learn. Uh, Being a chef it takes this very enjoyable thing, like cooking and eating, and it takes it to this level where it's so intense that you either gotta learn to survive or yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of fun, but I
Do you still cook though? Now's
I
the
do
question. Do you still cook?
I do. And I
Still
do.
enjoy it?
Like I'll get home and I'll have dinner ready with five. in like 20, all come out at once. No, where it's salad, soup, and steak, it all comes boom, same time. Rice, yeah.
There's still a little chef.
I still like prep my vegetables and I still, yeah.
You still have a little bit of chef in you for sure.
I do. I enjoy it as long as I don't have to do it for other people. You know what I mean? Just my family.
Yeah. Yeah. So what year did you quit your job and go full time with your school?
No, I'm not sure. That must have been 2000 and I was at this location. So 2010, 11, 12. It might have been like 2012, 2013. I'm assuming.
Okay. There's still like a few years in, still kind of like early on. So that's, I would say that's good.
Every year except for this year, my business has improved and grown. Obviously, except for this year. But I think martial arts itself is a good analogy and a good set of behavior for all business owners. You know what I mean? Because there are times when being a business owner, you got to be maybe a little vicious. Sometimes you got to be competitive, but really it's about evaluating yourself, being honest with yourself, and changing and adapting and growing and overcoming, in yourself, right? Like I think I've never looked at other martial arts schools competition. I just looked at myself and maybe my negative inclinations as my business's competition. You know what I mean? And I think that comes from fighting.
Yeah, for sure. For sure it does. I can see that. And plus a lot of times if your business is not succeeding, it's not because of any other business. It's probably because of you. Something that you're like holding back on, or a decision you made. It's because of you, because like no one dictates your business besides yourself, or maybe if you like run it with someone else. But I think most of the time, if it's not succeeding, you're the reason, if you're the owner, that it's not succeeding. And you have to, like you said, reevaluate yourself and be a little vicious, be aggressive, but also still be kind, but like know that you have to put more time and effort back in to get where you wanted the business to be before you saw it start to fail.
And that's exactly the same for martial arts. If you lose a fight, no one's, that's you, that's on you. We always tell our fighters, whether you hit the guy, whether the guy hits you, you lose, you win, that's all on you. There's no one else responsible for it. It's just you. Which is, is very true. You know what I mean? A lot of these things I could have taught these things as a chef, or I don't know, in any of my other hobbies. I would have just done that. But I think martial arts is definitely, the best vehicle to learn these, I'm not gonna say skills, values, behavior, set of behavior. You know what I mean?
For sure. I think martial arts, and especially anywhere where it's like competitive nature in itself, like when it comes down to the person determines the outcome, is a great thing to help teach someone that like anything that happens in life, like to your life, like you're responsible for how you answer to or respond to a situation. You're responsible for the outcome. Like you said, for fighting, you're responsible whether you win or lose. Like you can't be like, oh, like this factor made me lose, or oh, this person or this thing. Like, no, like it's all on you. You can't blame it on anyone else.
That's exactly right.
For sure.
Pieces. I know some people have a hard time with that, especially in martial arts, but hopefully they can gain that through martial arts. I always tell my kids too, especially martial arts, because when you're out in the ring, I mean, you have someone in your corner, but really you're out there by yourself, you know. Um, and you're not out there with someone who's trying to beat you at the game. You're out there with someone trying to beat you up, So like every little
Yeah.
right? And I know martial arts doesn't have the most healthy mentality with this kind of thing, but when you compare it to what you are preparing for, um, I mean, that's a necessity. Like if you were to think about martial arts like swimming, and to think about swimming like preparing to not drown, you're not going to take no chance how bad you are at. You know what I mean? You're going to make sure you can swim. There's a chance to drown, right? But the thing is, martial arts is weird because there's a disconnect, right? Where our behavior, mentality, pattern of behavior, inclinations and stuff. We don't align that with the main what's the word activity, which is fighting, and it should align. And our training behavior should align with that. Our health, all those things should align with: are we able to fight? If someone attacked us, would we survive? If we were in the ring, would we do well? You know what I mean? And you take that
Mhm.
mentality of preparing outside training, preparing outside the fight during training, and being able to execute during the fight. You apply that to anything in your life, and you know, I think you can do anything really. I mean, maybe not anything. I mean, covering it
Almost.
cars or
Almost
anything.
anything.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
things
Um,
over. Um, mm, yeah, most things though. I would definitely say. Or definitely.
most things for sure.
Or you
Um,
found.
so kind of so so kind of now, so there's two things I want to talk about before we start wrapping it up. First, kind of explain how you adjusted the schooling to the past year and a half because of the restrictions and everything. Kind of, let's first go into that. Kind of explain what you did to overcome it and make your business still thrive in the environment that we were in.
Well, number one is because of everything that happened. I had less classes, and it was hard, and I had less students. But positives, because that in itself is kind of a form of defeat in a sense. If we think about it in martial arts terms, victory and defeat. But in its own way, it was another victory because it gave me more time to focus on the students that um, you know could find a way to keep training. So I opened private lessons, and I was able to really in on students in a much more hands-on way. 'Cause sometimes we have classes of 20, 30 people. Well, not always 30. It depends on the class, but generally classes are from 15 to 30 people. And sometimes we just can't focus on everyone because it's like me. I can't just teach everyone. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of individual coaching that needs to happen. So it was kind of a blessing actually. So, I private lessons, more time outside of class to do like mentoring and stuff. I would invite my students to go do more activities. Um, and it just gave me a lot more opportunities to transmit, whatever, maybe martial arts theories, knowledge, ideas, moves, and you know, also all the other stuff we talked about. Was that- for me, I never think about how do I make my business thrive. I always think about more like how do I serve my students. You know what I mean? And so that was definitely kind of silver lining. It kind of helped me a little bit more.
That's awesome. That's I feel like a lot of, especially with what happened the past year and a half, a lot of businesses did have to shift, but the ones that were able to shift and kind of come out on top, I feel like they all have the general consensus or the general same like answer or same outcome was like, yeah, like we kind of like learned, a little bit about ourselves. We also learned how to do what we do better. And now, if knock on wood, I hope it doesn't happen, but if it ever did again, you know how to approach the business now, because we never in our lifetime had to face it. But now you know that, okay, I can still continue, because now I know how I can do it, continue in a situation like this. So is there anything now, since we, restrictions are kind of lightening up, is there anything that you're going to continue that you started during the past year and a half and continue it in your schooling now compared to before? Like something you learned, something new you implemented, you were like, hey, I really like this, I want to continue to do this.
Well, few things actually. Number one is definitely some online program and online resources. I created a lot of new online resources for my students, and online classes. We didn't do online class before. And a big shift I took was I started teaching stuff I want to teach versus just stuff that would make them accomplished athletes. Like one of my students is a world champ, and they've all been on the USA team. Not all of them, but everyone who's applied for it has made it on the team. So, our old program was very effective at putting out very high level athletes, but, I wasn't really teaching what I wanted to teach. You know what I mean? So taking that shift was good, and gearing the program more towards what I want to focus on versus what people want to learn was big too. That was a big shift. So, there's a lot that came along with this terrible, terrible period of time. And I would definitely say that I feel a little bit more free as an artist to, share my art. Because before, I was teaching a lot of, like we talk about wushu, modern stuff, whether it's modern fight styles and modern Chinese martial arts. And now, I've just brought it back to things that I want to teach. Which has been great.
Mm-hmm. Before I ask one of the last things, I should have asked this earlier, are you the only instructor, or is there anyone else?
Nope, I am the instructor, the bookkeeper, the janitor. I wear every hat. But I do have we call them junior instructors. They're like a small team. We have them help out and teach. And in turn, they get some benefits. Another shift I made, sorry, jump back, was in the past, I include the mentality for all my advanced classes. If you can work hard enough, you can join. That's fine. You know what I mean? But really, it never works out that way. So, that was another big shift we made, was all the advanced classes are invite only, which just ties into me teaching what I want to teach to who I want to teach now, worrying a little bit less about value, I guess, or just growing what kind of value. Because, sometimes advanced students would come to advanced class and they would end up teaching these people, which is fine, which is good, but this is better.
This is better. I like this. Okay, so you're everything. You run the show.
Yep. I wouldn't recommend.
And this will go into the next question.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy running the entire show?
That's a really good question. Sometimes I wish I didn't, because like we said, anything that goes wrong, it's me. You know what I mean? And I take full responsibility for that. Whether it's sometimes in my social media marketing, taxes, I don't know, whatever it is, I might mess up. If I mess it up, it messes up. And I have no one to look at. And then I have to be the one who fixes it. So, I would say in that way, no, I wish that I wasn't the only one wearing all the hats. But at the same time, I think that if there was someone here who had my sense of ethics and morals, and I say that in the sense, like, I have a lot of people who participate in martial arts with me, or peers, and money is just too important to a lot of people. And that's not bad about anyone. It's just being realistic. Like, money is the thing we have to survive. If we don't have money, our school doesn't survive. But the thing about me is, shoot, man, I'd go get my job again and make sure my school's open so that my students could train, even if they couldn't pay. So in another sense, you know, if I was to have someone else who could help me out, they would have to be on that level, which is not why I've
Right.
never found anyone who could. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very very few amount of people that think like that. They're very rare, the people that do. They're always awesome. Hence, you know why I loved working with you, because you're awesome. Um, but like I said, that question ties into the next one. So explain to everyone listening kind of what your day looks like then, from when you wake up, go to go to teach, and then you go to bed.
Yeah. Oh, that's a hard one. Oh man, I wake up. The first thing I do, I try to get the worst things out of the way. And now, if I've ever corresponded with you online, email, any of that stuff, I'm not saying you're the worst. Just that's the thing I enjoy doing. So first thing I do, get like I go through messages through my social media, emails, texts. I get a lot, and it's kind of tiring because I get a lot of garbage. So if you've ever seen my social media, obviously, just stop sending me garbage. Just don't send me garbage, okay? Like theories or like real theoretical questions about martial arts that are meaningful, and no clickbait, please, thank you, or political. I always get these things like I don't know. It's now there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that's not how I like to start my day, and that's how I start my day. Um, and then I usually at the point go, I'm done with all of this, and then I take care of my kids. But then usually while I'm taking care of my kids, I have to start lining up stuff like emails, programming. So classes, the thing with my classes is I'm constantly trying to develop a program that is the most efficient for my students to develop physically and learning, which is hard because there's always different students. There's always different variables. So that starts as pretty much as soon as I wake up. Um, Sometimes I get to train. I usually get to the studio at some point in time. I fit in stuff like books, all the boring stuff that no one wants to talk about ever. And I never want to do either. And then usually I have to prepare for classes and then start teaching usually, and then I clean again. I spend a lot of time cleaning. I think if anyone is a teacher, they're probably also a janitor in the yeah. And a lot of my is just planning my programs, classes, next month's programs, next week's programs, stuff like that. Especially because right now, I said we're doing a lot of shifting, and a lot of that shifting is occurring in curriculum. Um, for the past, I'd say like 7, 8 years, I had a curriculum that I taught out of, and it was perfect. It created a lot of amazing, but it wasn't fulfilling for me because it's not like the kind of training I do. You know, how do I say this? It's a lot more modern stuff, and not always, but generally the modern stuff is not as deep and in depth. So a lot of shifting. How we're going to be effective and efficient in teaching this kind of stuff, I don't know. What
Find out.
I yeah, fitting. Oh, and then I later on I do more social media. I do usually do like online stuff, emails, text, inquiries, social media, posting. I do it twice a day when I wake up and when I leave the studio.
Mhm. Do you so do you what do you find time to train yourself? Like do your own martial arts training or any training in general, and also like family time and stuff. When do you fit those type of things into your schedule?
So training I do all throughout the day, and then usually maybe sometimes if my students are rocking it, I'll train with them. But usually I train before, a few hours before classes, and then when I go home after my boys are in bed, I train after before I go to bed. But family time is a hard one because I'm always on my phone. So like, in the morning when my boys are eating, when they're doing this, when they're doing that, if I'm not training, I'm handling business, whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like crazy how many things you have to do on your own to run a business. Stuff like calendars. I don't know. I create a lot of online resources throughout the day, video editing. Oh my God. If I have to edit one video, I think I'm gonna throw up. Seriously. I haven't posted any new videos for my oh God. I'm so tired of editing videos. Yeah. So I don't know. There's just so many things to and for me, the only thing that keeps me doing them is that because a lot of the things I do aren't really necessarily like making me money, but they add more value to what people can gain from the school. Also, it's a lot just more resources. A lot of times, all my projects are just finding to get that information out there for people, and even if they're not trading with me.
Mm-hmm. I love how even when you go home, like, I mean, family time is important, but you'll also, like, when you put your boys to sleep, you still operate, even when you're not at the school, you still operate with the mindset that I want to find resources and do these things to help better my students. Um, so even if you're not working, you still have that mindset that I want to make someone's life better or my class like make what they're learning better. Um, so with that being said, what can you explain to the viewers? So say someone that's listening right now, they're interested in trying out a class. You want to explain really quick what a typical class that you teach would look like from like start to finish.
Yeah, if they were going to join in on there's one thing I forgot to mention the last time. Usually, family time is really like just the weekend because throughout the day, me and my partner are running around trying to keep the boys fed, dry, clean. But anyways, yeah. Uh, Classes. If someone was to come to our class, do a warm up, and I have to admit, some people can't do the warm up. It's not that hard. It's stuff like jogging, butt kickers, but stuff like bear crawls, crab walk, duck walks, and sometimes it takes it out of people. But I think if people stick with it, they will gain a lot out of it. Some of the things we do for a warm up, people hate, but then after a while, they gain a greater mobility. We generally do things we call stances, which is like it's like holding a squat position, and we do different positions along with strikes, and we do a lot of what we call stretch kicks. I guess is a good way to translate it, like kicks that make you kick higher. I guess you know what I mean. And then we do some sanda, which is like kickboxing. Um, Generally, we'll be going through different combos. Usually, we try to get in like one move, one defensive move, one ankle cut, um, a punch and a kick. Uh, and sometimes we'll add in some physical defense. So like we'll often go through non-physical defense, like someone's throwing a punch, slipping versus checking. And then we do forms. Forms are like these routines that are passed down through generation, and we continue to practice them, try to improve them, and pass them to the next generation. That's a general class. It's an hour. It's really fast. It goes by really quick, and there's a lot of information in there. And I would tell people if they come, oftentimes we circulate what we really focus on for the day, and it's usually one of 3 subjects. So come to at least like a few weeks of class, but don't make a decision till after, because I honestly think that it's not for everyone. I mean, even if you're not going to compete at the world championship, I train everyone like they're going to compete at the world championship. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, all right. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So for anyone listening, if you want to go train at Jun's studio, that's kind of what a class would look like. And we're about to wrap up. So the last thing I want to ask you is what is the school and what do you have planned for the rest of 2021? Like, I know you have like a camp coming up and you said you're doing the shift in curriculum and stuff. So kind of just, tell everyone listening what you have going on for the rest of the year.
That's a good question. Um, Number one thing is get back to being normal. You know what I mean? Get back to the studio, get our fight team running again. Um, and really, we always try to set goals for our students. So preparing for the world championship would definitely be one of the things we put on the horizon. And for me, one really big goal I have is I have a lot of students who really, really did really well and trained really hard, and making sure that they can take on more leadership roles and have a little more ownership around the studio. Not in a bad way, you know what I mean? But they have to do the dishes, but like, you know, get to explore the skills they've gained through so much hard work in a different way, rather than being the one who is absorbing it. Try to rediscover it through teaching, which is really hard to do. You know what I mean? Anything you have to teach, you have to really relearn it in a new way. So, I'm hoping that, I have so many students who are, I'm hoping that we can shift them into more leadership roles now that they've gotten to focus on themselves for so long for this past year. It's probably my top priority.
Nice. Well, I hope you're successful with it. And I hope for everyone that's listening, this is just the podcast. We're also going to try to get a video out of me attending one of his classes and probably get my butt kicked because I'm not as limber or probably as skilled as some of those kids, but I'm going to try. But I would like to say from myself and everyone listening, thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking about your business and your core values and just kind of like how you got started. So whoever is listening is either informed on your classes if they're interested, or also too if they're just starting out and want to start a business. I think you gave a lot of good insight on how to be successful, and I really appreciate again you coming on and also helping with our prior series. And with that being said, I'm Daniel Minetti from Men's Sister Studios, and we will see you guys next time.